Welcome back to the Battery Podcast. I'm Aiden,
And I'm Jack.
and it's a matchup of two undefeateds this weekend. Although, I mean, 1-0 is a pretty soft undefeated, but the Cannons will
Just
look.
like their city.
I love the trash talk is starting early. Yeah, the Cannons will look to stay atop the Eastern Conference standings. They take on the Water Dogs this coming Friday night. I know both teams had, pretty good wins, but in different ways. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of what style. Or I mean, the Cannons won a very similar game with the same scoreline in their first game against the Atlas. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what route this game takes, whether it's a more high scoring, low scoring type of affair. Um, Obviously, got a ton of confidence in that Cannon's defense, but yeah, I guess we'll see if I mean Michael Sowers 7 assists last week is a scary guy to go against.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been been an exciting first 2 weeks for the Cannons, and the Water Dogs certainly seem to be better than they were last year, although you can make the argument they weren't that bad. Last year was just extremely unlucky. So certainly an intriguing early season matchup, regardless of the fact that it's Boston Philly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're really excited to welcome on Kyle from Outside the Box, who's also a Water Dogs fan in addition to just covering the league as a whole. So I think we'll kick it over to him now to just preview this matchup very thoroughly with the Water Dogs. Hey B, thanks for coming on. How we living?
We are living well, fellas. Love the reference there. Shout out to Nat St. Laurent. Yeah, I'm doing well. PLL season is here. We're 2 weeks in, getting ready for it to be a parade inside my city. Love when the PLL comes to Philly. It's always a doozy of a time. It's going to be a great weekend. Looking forward to it. And I mean, this early stretch of the PLL before the All-Star break, like this run is always just so fun and almost just like staple locations of the PLL. And like it always is just like, cool, we're going here. But then the weekend happens and you have no idea what's gonna unfold. And I genuinely feel like as PLL fans and people who cover the sport, we are in for the most incredible PLL season we've ever had. And I'm not just saying that as like a PLL media member, as just like a fan of the game. Like we've seen the first 2 weeks unfold already. I guarantee nobody had the first 2 weeks going the way they did on their bingo cards going into the season. And that's what makes this league so awesome. And I can't wait for week 3 in Philadelphia.
Oh my, yeah. I feel the same way I do about the NFL, right? Like every week in the NFL is such a huge storyline, and the PL like it's so much easier to consume all of it because there's only 4 games a week. So like we get like I almost wish they were spread out a little bit more so I just get to eat up that content like every day, but it's also like there's so much that happens those 2 days that you can kind of digest it over the rest of the week, and the league itself does a good job of like spacing those highlights out where I know like today they were posting Marcus Holman's goal again. And I know the Cav goal, obviously the Chris Cav one that is yeah, it's just a great way like and yeah, you're right. We absolutely could not have. Certainly, the league did not expect the Denver Outlaws to look like the worst offense in the league with the last, 4 of the last 5 Tewaaraton winners on it. Um, and I mean, well, let's get to talking. How do you feel about the Dogs after 2 weeks but only one game? I know maybe that was another surprise that not a lot of people picked.
Yeah, I mean, I had the dogs winning in the OTB pick'em. So if you know me, I was ready to rock and roll. I knew they were going to be ready. They look great. They look like a new offense. They did not look slow, and I think that was one of their big things last year was if the ball was not in Michael Sowers or Kieran McCardle's stick, the offense kind of just died because there wasn't that outside presence there. Ethan Walker was in the midst of one of, if not the worst season of professional lacrosse he's ever played, either NLL or PLL. And I hope, this NLL season like reinvigorated him with Albany to just get back on track for his career in general. I know he's on the holdout list this year, but um, Jake Taylor is, as Anish Shroff put it, an alchemist. That
Yeah.
dude is unbelievable. And Bill Tierney told me after the draft at ESPN HQ, he said he would not be surprised if Jake Taylor scores 15 goals on the man up at least this year. And by watching him in that first game, and Michael Sauer saying he and Kieran McCardle and Jake Taylor at training camp built this like triad bond together, those three are going to absolutely cook on offense. But my biggest like holy wow moment was Thomas McConvey looked like the Thomas McConvey we thought was coming out of Virginia when he was in his fifth year. He looked incredible. And I'm truly convinced, like, Bill Tierney said he had an injury last year. The way he played this past weekend in Charlotte makes me really feel like he was dealing with something serious because that was like something that I didn't really know what Thomas McConvey was going to be this year. And he looks like he's going to be a massive part of this Dylan Sheridan offense for the Water Dogs. And that's exciting. Like when you get in any sport, when you get an unexpected variable that's a positive for your team, that is just like opening a Christmas gift that your mom found in the closet in May. And it's like, whoa, this is awesome. I know I didn't get to open it under the tree, but here we are on Memorial Day grilling up burgers and hot dogs, and I'm opening a gift wrapped in Santa wrapping paper.
That is such a perfect analogy for McConvey. Like when I was going through my PLL cards over the offseason and I saw him, I was like, honestly, like they bothered making one for him because he just felt like such a non-factor his first couple of years in the league. And hat trick in game one, I feel like that's production you'll take from anyone any day of the week, except for maybe like a guy of Sowers where you expect him to get, 4, 5, 6 points, which he even exceeded. Yeah, he was like the whole offense just looked so much more free and flowing. And I think what we've talked about a lot with the Redwoods too is they look like happy, like they really look like they're having
Mm-hmm.
fun. Whereas some of those teams that are 0-2, Denver and Maryland, it really looks like they're like at work
Yeah.
versus
And I think with the Water Dogs too, like last year, talking to some of the guys, whether they were on the pod or seeing them, in the offseason, like they knew this team was talented. And last year was just like the Doctor Strange permutations were like the one outcome where 6 games you lose by one score happened. And going into this year, it blew my mind, just like doing like predictions for each team and like kind of slotting in where I saw teams fitting. It made me laugh almost how many people just like discounted the Water Dogs being good when you look at their roster. Like they were horrendous last year, but you still have Kieran McCardle, you still have Michael Sowers, you still have Connor Kelly, you still have guys like Mikey Schlosser, you still have like an elite defense plus a young core defense that Bill Tierney drafted last year to bring in behind those guys who all of them made an immediate impact in Charlotte from Kenny Brower's debut. Marcus Hudgens is one of my favorite players in the PLL. That dude, when he made his debut in Philly last year, I was like, this is one of the most underappreciated PLL debuts we'll ever get because he plays defense. But that guy is a gamer. And then you're adding, now confirmed after the All-Star break, the Tewaaraton winner, the all-time college goal scoring leader. Like CJ Kirst is going to be in this offense. You added Jake Taylor to this offense, and you got guys healthy, like McConvey, Mikey Schlosser. I was talking to DJ about this. Obviously, Mikey's a Michigan man, but like this past Charlotte weekend was the first opening, game weekend for the Water Dogs that Mikey Schlosser was healthy for since 2022.
yeah.
Like put that in perspective about a guy who is such a different mold of the other midfielders for this team. Like he's such a strong dodging presence, and Jack Hanna is that too. But I feel like Jack also has like the finesse game where Mikey's much more of like a crash and like bang type of player. But the fact that Mikey Schlosser is finally healthy, Jack Hanna is elevating his game. Connor Kelly is one of the most consistent players in the PLL. And then they have an elite goalie duo that you can throw DeLuca out there, you can throw Dylan Ward out there. And if you're a Water Dogs fan, you feel great about either of them because of their track record. And you saw Matt DeLuca perform at such an elite level in Charlotte. this past weekend. And I was genuinely impressed that he held his own against Joe Nardella, and I knew he was going to have a better season than he did in his rookie year because there was no burden of the slow start. He wasn't worrying about his grad year in college. Stathakis, what he did in the NLL for Vancouver this past season really gave me promise for him developing. And we've seen that a lot with guys, that go and take faceoffs in the NLL. It really revitalizes your career in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
And Stathakis, I think, is going to have such a better sophomore season, and that's big for this Water Dogs team. And I mean, across the board, like they're still not fully healthy. Like Charlie Hayes was just placed on injured reserve today. Christian Scarpello is not back from coaching high school lacrosse. Like they're gonna get other guys back, and CJ Kirst hasn't played a game. So like if you're down on the Water Dogs, like I genuinely would love to hear why, because there's so much more positive about this team after 1 week and just going into the season, in my opinion, from a completely unbiased perspective, than there is negative. Like I genuinely like there's very few negatives about this team right now, and that's even in like after a win, like they put up 16 points against the Whip Snakes, who have the reigning defensive player of the year on their team, and they drafted Ajax Zapatello to neutralize Michael Sowers, which he did very well last year. But Michael Sowers had a game where he tied for second in PLL history in assists in a game, and then capped it off with a goal to help the score differential. Last year, the Water Dogs did not have a game where they recorded 16 points. They recorded 16 points in game one. Like, that's a positive sign, for growth, not only for the players, but this coaching staff and what they're going to be able to accomplish. I just genuinely think it was so silly for a lot of people to be down on this Water Dogs team and just kind of chuck them to the side. And I said, like, the Cannons and obviously New York are the creme de la creme from last year, and until proven otherwise, like the Whip Snakes battled to get to that championship game last year. I'm not saying they're a bad team, but after 2 weeks, they don't look like the same team.
Mm-mm.
And I think the Water Dogs are far closer to what the Cannons and Atlas are right now in terms of continuity, in terms of talent, than what the Whip Snakes are.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think people, obviously, the biggest reason to be down on them is it's mostly the same roster that went 2-8 a year ago, but it's also mostly the same roster that made it to the championship game the year before. Um,
And the year before that.
yeah, that's right. So yeah, um, yeah. I mean, you're right. The Whips, I would say, are on track to be last in the East based on how we've gone through 2 weeks. But you never know. Like the Whips were not looking that good last year, and then they rattled off what 6, 7 games in a row and
Mm-hmm.
came up short at the in the championship. Um, so to focus specifically on this matchup this weekend, what are you worried most about from the Cannons, and what do you think the Water Dogs are going to attack against the Cannons?
Do you want my critical analysis answer, or do you want my Hardo Philly fandom answer, or do you want both?
I think we'll go with the Hardo answer, and then we'll see where that leaves us.
All right, for everybody listening to this, this is just like me wanting Philadelphia sports teams to succeed. Obviously, I'm a media member. I want everyone in the PLL to succeed. But the Hardo Philly answer that scares me about this weekend, I'm fucking terrified of Zach Tucci. That dude lives rent free in my head. Whenever they post that clip, I just want to put out the Adam Schefter tweet that says assault, because that is just it's not nice when they post that clip. And I love Zach. He's a great dude. But that just scarred me last year when that happened, and it drove me nuts because we still didn't have a face-off guy on that Water Dogs team. And the fact that they lost both of those games on homecoming weekend by 1 point each was just gut wrenching. But we'll have Stathakis out there, and I think that's gonna be a very fun battle. I think those two guys are on a similar like level of face-off guys. If you do like the internet tier listing, I think you'd put Stath and Tucci like in that B tier of face-off guys in the
Sure.
PLL. Like obviously you have Trevor, you have Nards, you have TD, who are, the creme de la creme. I like to call them the unicorns. But I feel like Tucci and Stathakis are those guys who can win you faceoffs. They're they're not perfect, but they're going to do a lot of good for you that outweighs some of the negative from their game. Um, the other thing that I don't think necessarily scares me, but I'm intrigued about from just a gamer like perspective is depending on how the roster situation is when we get the rosters released, how this young Water Dogs defense that played this past weekend in Charlotte, from Brower to Hudgens, and those guys compete against Asher, Marcus, and just a very talented Cannons offense. And seeing that veteran versus like youth perspective really like shake itself out, I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. That's going to be a key matchup for me. And then just the way that this Water Dogs offense, since after 1 week they've looked the part of being that elite offense we know them to be, can they crack the Colin Kirst code? That's a big thing for them from last year, was just like they took shots that looked good, and then Colin Kersey either saved them, or it was just like the ball did not find its way into the back of the net for whatever reason. So I'm very intrigued to see Jake Taylor go up against this Cannons defense, how they kind of prepare for him. And I think the midfield, like for both teams, is going to be such a like X factor, because they're two different stylistic midfields in my opinion. Like the Cannons midfield is very like two-way. You have Matt Campbell, you have guys that can get up and down the field on a whim, and Matt Campbell obviously is one of, if not, you know, he should be the poster boy for the USA Olympic team in 2028, as Brian Holman put it. Like, Drenner's very versatile. If Donville's active, he's a guy that like adds such a different element to the midfield. Connor Kirst is a guy who can get up and down. Vardaro is the same way. Mick Kelly, if he plays, like he's very versatile. So the two-way switchability of like the offensive midfield for the Cannons is going to be fascinating to me, versus what the Water Dogs can do, in their midfield. Like we said, from Jack Hanna and Mikey Schlosser being very like dodgy. If McConvey can, have a follow-up to what he did in Charlotte, Zach Currier is obviously one of, if not the best midfielder on the planet. Connor Kelly is a weapon from, 2-point range. That's going to be part of this, I think, as well, as if the Water Dogs can, they didn't score any twos in the game, if I'm not mistaken, against Maryland. So it's like, that's another element of their offense that they like haven't even tapped into yet. So if they can figure out some just fun ways there, and I mean, the short stick situation for the Water Dogs is very like, I was not expecting to see short stick defensive midfielder Eli Gobrecht this year, but here we are.
Yeah.
I thought he did a very good job in Charlotte against the Whip Snakes, and I think Dylan Hess is just a freight train ready to blow anybody over. So there's a lot of like fun matchups in this one, and I think it's gonna be an early season tell on where these two teams kind of sit. And I don't even like base it on who wins and who loses. Like, I genuinely think, outside of when these two teams play each other again down the line this season, this could be a potential playoff matchup that we see, come September, late August, whatever it may be. And that's exciting, because these two teams, they don't like each other. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of bad blood, from Champ Series, which seems to be the Cannons' MO. They build rivalries in Champ Series and make teams hate them. But I genuinely am like looking at each individual matchup. And I think the other thing too, like against the Whip Snakes, Bill Tierney decided to dress Jimmy Freehill at LSM over Rylan Reese, which
Mm.
I was like, that was my biggest like head scratcher move of the weekend, was like, why is your all world LSM not in the lineup? So I'm interested to see if Jimmy plays again with Ben Weyer, or if Rylan Reese is back in the lineup this week. Um, but that was another thing. I think the rookies for both teams last week also looked fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, do you think it maybe with the Freehill versus Reese was kind of a stylistic matchup of wanting to like Ware is very much like an offense first kind of guy, and then Freehill maybe a little bit more of a, classical defender?
Yeah, I do wonder if it was either a style thing, or how they viewed using their wing play for Staff going against Nardella, and if they just wanted Jimmy's like, not that Rylan Reese is old, he's 28 and he's all Canadian like superstar, but I wonder if they just wanted Jimmy's like straight from college type of legs going. And obviously we don't know there's a lot of situations in the PLL where like people like have way too reactionary of takes for guys being out of the lineup one week to the next. Which there's one that I will bring up on this show with you guys because it drove me nuts seeing the amount of Will Manny out of the lineup. Is he on the trade block type stuff? And I was like, what are we talking about? But I do wonder if it was a like, let's get Jimmy on the wing and utilize that defensive mindset that he has to help Staff
Yeah.
in the face-off battle against Nards. That's a good point by you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think the same way that Ethan Rawl and Owen Grant are the two LSMs for the Cannons who play two very different types of games because they're very different sized humans.
Yes.
Yeah, geez, yeah, there's, I mean, so much that you touched on. What do you, I don't know. I mean, yeah, there's a lot that I want to go back to, but like to talk about the offense, Jake Taylor seems like one of those guys who like it seems like he has telepathy with the people he plays with. Like he's yeah, just one of those guys who like you give him like that much space. For anyone audio only, I held my fingers an inch apart. And that ball's going like behind the back into the back of the net. So I'm very curious who's going to get that matchup for the Cannons because it feels like they kind of have three elite cover guys. And Keelty is the kind of the communicator, facilitator, like the Eddie Glazner type.
He's so
Um,
good.
but you can't have him be on Jake Taylor, I think, because then he's got to run all over the field and have his, have his stick glued to Jake Taylor. And obviously, you don't want to slide off him because the aforementioned he takes it into space and puts it in the goal. Um, so I wonder if maybe he's going to be on Sowers because I think he can kind of contain him a little bit. No one can really fully contain him, and then like the ball is just going to be in Sauer's stick probably the majority of the time of anyone on that offense, and then they
Mhm.
kind of figure out who the other matchups are from there.
Yeah, I am curious because we do have an all-time uh outside the box podcast bit that Bryce Young is on your defense. He hates anybody under the height of 5'10". Michael Sowers is going to be out there. He and Michael have had their squabbles in the past when Bryce was on the Whip Snakes. I wonder if that is a matchup we potentially see as well, where Bryce kind of gets Michael Sowers, Epple maybe gets uh Jake Taylor, and then they kind of put Keelty on Kieran McCardle,
Mm.
which would be you want to talk about heavyweight matchup.
Yeah.
Keelty versus Kieran would be cinema.
Oh yeah, two
Because
elite.
those two are just gamers.
Yeah, and guys who do not take any shit from
Yes.
anyone. Um, this is I'll feel awful if this winds up actually happening. My kind of one of my predictions for this game is I think Sowers is going to get another concussion because he
That
got.
wait, that's not nice.
I don't want it to happen, all right, but he's
I,
gotten them twice playing against the Cannons. He got knocked down by Bernhardt late in the game against Maryland and came up kind of gingerly, came off the field for a minute. So I'm not.
which I don't think that from the Maryland game, I don't know if that was necessarily his head. I think he just hit the ground hard and
Okay.
it just like knocked the wind out of him because Michael is a guy too, and I think it's so fat. I talk to people about this a lot too. Like Michael Sowers, for whatever reason, has caught this like injury prone tag in his career. But if you look at Michael Sowers' playing career in the PLL, the only season he's missed time was his rookie year. Every other season, depending on how many games they've played, he's played the full season. And then
For
the
sure.
only other injury he sustained was that champ series, like concussion, like symptoms when he got knocked out of the championship game. I get like concussions are a huge thing, and that's why Michael Sowers wears the Q collar,
Yeah.
which I think every player should wear, honestly. Um, but the injury prone tag that Michael gets is perplexing to me because he's one of the most active players, like week in and week out. That dude's in the lineup. Um, but I think Michael going into this year, he's like learned about his body a lot and is like very in tune with like his game. And I think we saw it in that game against Maryland where like he wasn't like crashing the net like we've seen in years past. He wasn't going and like doing some crazy stuff. Like I think we're going to see a lot of like facilitation from Michael Sowers this year, and I think that's going to help this offense a lot and get a lot more guys involved. Where like we don't see the 2024 Water Dogs offense where it's Kieran, Michael Sowers or bust. You're going to see Michael like dish the ball to McConvey, to Jack Hanna, to Connor Kelly, and rack up assists. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Michael Sowers is like top three in assists this year if he continues passing the ball the way he did against Maryland. Obviously, you're not going to have 7 assists every game. Um, but I think we're going to see a lot more of like the passing game from Michael Sowers, which I think is a hugely underrated part of his game. He's such a slick and smooth passer, and his vision is unbelievable. Um, and a lot of people were saying it, when they were playing, like that was that game against Maryland, that was like Princeton Michael Sowers. That's where we saw, him kind of quarterback the offense and move the ball around and get everyone involved. And that's where this Water Dogs offense is going to succeed, is when everybody is getting fed, because there is so much talent. It's very similar to the Cannons. There's so much talent on offense. Who do you get the ball to? And you guys have seen it these past couple of weeks with Asher. Like, he's been dishing the ball a lot more, not really scoring. He'll get his, like, as the season progresses.
Yeah.
But when Asher's able to move the ball and pass it around, Cannon's offense looks very fluid. And we've seen that in their couple games so far, where Asher's not necessarily being the initiator and scoring, but he's getting Marcus involved. He's getting Jonathan Donville involved. He's getting Will Manny, and you're seeing Coulter Mackesy get involved in the offense now, and Graydon Hogg, who would have thought he would come in week one and put up the production that he did. So I think when you have these elite talents that are potential like MVP candidates year in and year out that showcase other parts of their game, it's easy to like diminish what they're doing. But I think it can't be overstated enough when you have guys like Sowers, when you have guys like Asher Nolting who are able to also pass the ball and make the offense kind of move and be that engine. That's when the elite teams kind of shine through versus just the very good teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only reason I was saying that is because he is, he's a 5'7" guy who likes to play near the crease. And I think everyone on, pretty much every PLL defender is over 6 feet tall, which is basically what happened. The stout one in Gem Series was different, but I feel like if the Cannons are just like, we're not sliding off Jake Taylor, we're not sliding off like Thomas McConvey, we're going to make Sowers go to the goal and try to beat us there, then that's maybe where that could happen. And I feel like, you don't want to give up 7 assists to guys who are cutting down the middle. And so I feel like the Cannons will actively try to stop that from happening and try to make it be the Sowers and McCardle show like it was last year. How successful they're going to be, who knows? Like, their plan was to shut off Xander Dixon, and I know he scored, but he had like 3 or 4 shots in the first quarter of that game against the Atlas. But yeah, I mean, Sowers, when healthy and when playing at the top of his game, is like absolutely, like, easily a top 5 player in this league. Like, AI, like his Allen Iverson, not artificial intelligence, like his
Yeah. The only AI we acknowledge.
yeah, absolutely. That's the only AI I want to talk about on this podcast. Um, yeah, you see that like point guard type mentality. Jack, you've been quiet. Anything else that you like? Is there any, like, we've talked about a lot so far, but like, any point you want to add to the conversation or a question you want to ask for Kyle or us to go back and forth about?
Yeah. Kyle, I didn't want to bring it up earlier, but I lost my train of thought. That's
All right. You didn't want to bring it up earlier, and you won't bring it up now. Um, so, I mean, something for me, I'm really curious who's going to be in the lineup. Like, you talked about Manny. I know you mentioned on the last episode of OTB, his wife is very heavily pregnant. So, maybe
Yes.
staying home with her, either just for
Which is
precaution.
like such an accessible thing if you're on social media. Like, Will's profile on Instagram is very public.
Yeah.
One of
Uh,
his most recent posts is him and his wife going on their baby moon. And if you scroll back a little bit, you see like the pregnancy announcement, like little sign that says that she's due in July. So like, she's very pregnant. Will also lives in Utah. So doing a little math where 2 plus 2 does equal 4 twice on Sundays. Will Manny being away at training camp in Albany on the East Coast for a week, plus a game day for the Cannons, being away from his pregnant wife for that long, On top of Will owns like a youth lacrosse company in Utah where he coaches and like runs operations. They also had games this week to kick off their summer circuit, and he was posting about that on his Instagram. A lot of these guys, as much as we hate to admit it, also have other obligations that unfortunately is part of this job and part of like this journey for a lot of these players right now. And seeing Will be able to manage it is pretty cool. And I think if anybody's out there saying Will Manny's on the trade block after week one because the number 4 overall pick was in the lineup over him is crazy. I saw that take a number of times and I just wanted to like scream into the ether because if there's any coach in this league that understands Will Manny's life process and what he has going on and off the field, he's playing for that coach right now, and his name is Brian Holman. Like those guys, like Will is essentially like Brian's second son. Like the way that he treats that, like you see the raw emotion in the video that TLN posted
Mm.
after that game. Like those guys are family, even though they're not blood related. And if there's anybody that understands what Will has going on right now, just from family stuff, life stuff, work stuff, I'm pretty sure it's Brian Holman. So Will not going from Albany to Utah, then to Charlotte, back to Utah. It's just a logistics things, guys. Plus, on top of that, Brian has told us in press conferences, I'm sure he's probably brought it up to you guys as well. He's doing his best to fix some of the things that went wrong for the Cannons last year and getting as many guys into game day lineups as possible to make sure he gets a look at everyone. I'm pretty sure you don't draft Coulter Mackesy number 4 overall just so he's not active on game days. The dude's too talented. You don't waste air quotes there the number 4 overall pick on a guy that you're not going to dress on game days. This lineup is very versatile, and you're going to see a lot of changing lineups. That's just what the PLL is on a week in and week out basis. But after Will Manny showed that he can play, after a long layoff, pretty sure we're going to see Will Manny in a Cannons uniform a lot more this summer.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, your point about this geography, I would expect to see him a lot in the latter half of the year unless Mackesy absolutely pops off. Like if he gets 4 goals a
Right.
game in the next 3 weeks, yeah, we're probably not going to see much more of Will Manny. Or we'll see someone coming out of the box, whatever. Um, yeah, the one thing I'm worried about with that is just like continuity and getting your offense into a flow if it's like alternating. But I trust Brian Holman to take care of that and one, do what's right for the players he has under him as
Mm-hmm.
people, and also do what's right for the team. Where like maybe the Cannons would have been a little bit better if they had Will Manny in the lineup, but you got to give Maxey a shot, see what he looks like, and let Will spend time with his family. Um, so I was flipping through the Cannons roster here because based on the performance the first 2 weeks, I wish we could do this after the rosters had come out, but logistically that's a little tough. So I'm that does, however, let us speculate about who we think will be in the lineup after 2 weeks, where it feels like there's a good number of givens, but between Verdaro, Donville, Hogg, and Kelly are kind of the 4 names up for 2 spots. Um, Jack or Kyle, do either of you have any thoughts about who we're going to see? And Kyle, on the flip side, I want to ask about who you think that we haven't seen in a Water Dogs lineup after week one might be in there for week two.
I think you're going to see a lot of the guys that you saw in week one. That's just my gut, just at least on the offensive side, just based on how the two offenses looked. I think you go back to Will Manny on the attack line. I think the attack looked better in week one than it did last week. I would love to see Mick Kelly back in there in the
Mhm.
midfield. I think he was really good opposite Matt Campbell. And then the question is kind of where do you go from there? I'm not exactly sure about between Hogg, uh, Maxey, obviously, and then Donville. What is the combination there in the midfield? I think it'll be interesting to run Maxey out of the midfield and see what that looks like because I think you ideally Manny and Mackesy should both be seeing the field. Like I said, Manny is the best option at lefty attack right now, purely based off of the first two games that
Yeah.
we've seen. But Kyle, to your point, you don't want to not dress McAfee. And given his play style, I think he could be good out of the box. So if we're mixing and matching lineups and seeing what works and who plays well, why not give McAfee one game to run out of the box? He doesn't even have to run out of the box the whole game because you're not tied to one position throughout a game. So that was a long rambling answer of saying I think Manny's going to be back in the lineup this week. I think McKelly's going to be back in the lineup this week. I don't know if I think, but I'm at least curious to see if McAfee is also in the lineup listed at midfield. And then I think it's anyone's guess between Hogg and Donville and
Verdaro.
everyone else.
Yeah.
Fodaro as
So
well. Did he play?
he played
Yeah,
in
he was
Vardaro
in the
played this
lineup. Yeah,
past
yeah, yeah.
weekend. Yeah.
yeah,
He was
and
this. He was in there this past week. Yeah.
yeah, and fun fact, got his first career assist in that game. He had 8 goals but no assists in his rookie year. I mean, he probably got one in Champ Series, but in a regular season outdoor game.
Real.
I,
Yeah.
I do have to speculate for the Cannons just because the injury report is out, and I love when we have injury reports midweek rather than 90 minutes before games kick off. Coulter Maxey is listed on the injury report, which makes me
Mm.
think he's going to be at least in the he's only listed as questionable, but that makes me assume he's going to be part of the 19-man roster if he's good to go.
Mhm.
He's listed with a right foot injury, but he's questionable. So that's definitely something to think about where like maybe it does make sense to run him out of the box and Will is active and you can have Will, Asher and Marcus and then make things a little bit lighter for Coulter. But with him being on the injury report and listed there, that makes me think he's part of the plan to be part of the 19-man this weekend. And then a lot will just depend on if he's good to go with the foot issue, which if he's questionable, I would assume he's going to try to play. Um, but yeah, I think Coulter will play. I'm intrigued to see if Will is back. I would like to see that. I think even though they're playing the Waterdogs, I think the continuity there on the offense was awesome in Albany between the three top guys there for the Cannons. I wanted to get your guys' take on this because he is my good friend. Uh, I love the way that Brian is playing Ryan Drenner right now.
Oh yeah.
Like the fact
Mhm.
that they're letting him kind of be fluid between attack and midfield and kind of interchangeable where he's just showcasing like real ones know Ryan Drenner lacrosse. Like he looks awesome right now, and I'm loving watching him play through the first 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Like he's almost in contention for comeback player of the year, except he was fully healthy last year. Uh,
Right.
officially at least. I'm sure,
Literally.
yeah, like that first game against the Atlas, he just highlighted everything that he does well, which is just about everything on the offensive end. Like, wouldn't be surprised if he had a cause turnover in there somewhere as well. Obviously the Archers defense, I think I would put as the best in the league, although it's hard to say it's not the Chaos. At least they have the best goalie.
Yeah.
Um, so of course production went down a little bit, but yeah, he just does like we've seen so many attackmen get drafted to play midfield in professional lacrosse, and most of them can't do it at
Hmm.
least as well as he can. And he started as I say this all the time, he started as an ex-attackman and is
Yep.
now an elite midfielder in the PLL.
He's just so good. He's so if you're new to the PLL, and this may be some people's first Boston Battery podcast episode, to which I apologize for being the guest for. The Ryan Drenner is the type of player that you want to watch in your first viewing of the PLL. Like that's a guy who I would recommend to anybody who's like watching the PLL for the first time. Watch number 22 on the Boston Cannons because that dude is so fun. He plays so fluid. His tilt is absurd,
Oh yeah, Tilt Daddy
and
Drenner.
he's so fun to root for too. Like he's just such a good person on
Yeah.
top of how elite of a player he is. But he's been awesome for this team and like he's going to be a massive X factor for the Cannons this year in my opinion. Like if he keeps playing this way, like he's going to find himself in the midfielder of the year conversation if he continues on this trajectory, which is exciting for a guy who's 30 years old and like you said has like transformed his career from being an ex-attackman to an elite midfielder for a championship contending team.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you feel like um, Drenner Campbell and Connor Kirst are the three guys who are reliably in the lineup every week, assuming they're healthy. Um, and, we talk so much about those other two, but Drenner has had the best start to the season so far among those three. I feel like Campbell is still not fully healthy. Like it looks like he's doesn't have that same kind of range or aggressiveness that he had last year. So hopefully that's something that if it is an injury that he's healthy at some point. Or and I don't believe Connor Kirst has scored yet. So the second half against New York kind of became the Ryan Drenner show
Yeah,
under those beautiful lights and the beautiful rainstorm.
the best.
Yeah, it really does make everything look more cinematic.
It's
Um,
so cool.
yeah. So to the second part of what I asked, what or if anyone, who do you think we'll see in the Water Dogs lineup this weekend that we didn't see week one? Ryland.
Well, I can confirm because I was doing a little perusing on the PLL website, and then the Water Dogs confirmed it later this afternoon. Charlie Hayes was placed on injured reserve with a left hamstring strain, so I think that's also why we've seen the emergence of short stick defensive midfielder Eli Gobrecht.
Mm.
Um, I think the short sticks are going to be the same this week for the Water Dogs. I think it'll be Eli, Dylan Hess, Matt Witcher, um, because Christian Scarpello is still not back from the pup list. I'm intrigued by the defense and what they're going to do combination wise there. Like the only guy we haven't seen, whether it be at defense or LSM, is Jack DiBenedetto, who they signed in free agency. So
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to see if he gets a shot this week. But if not, like Ben Randall, Marcus Hudgens, Kenny Brower held it down. And if you just continue building the continuity there, like that's the other thing too. Like that's the defense the Water Dogs are running. Liam Burns is still out injured. Like their captain on defense still hasn't suited up yet. Um, I liked what I saw from Ben Weyer last week and the fact that, you know, we can commiserate here from late round draft picks, Ben Ramsey for the Cannons and Ben Weyer for the Water Dogs. Like the fact that six other teams let those guys fall to where they got drafted at is just still clinically insane to me. I was sitting at ESPN HQ and just watching Ben Weyer continue to fall and 23 rolls around. I'm like, Bill Tierney's got to pull the trigger here. Like, I don't care what the roster makeup is. That dude's too talented to be falling into the 20s. And when he drafted him, I was like, that's a smart GM move. And
Mm.
when Ben Ramsey fell into Brian Holman's lap in the fourth round, I was like, he has to take him here because that was my biggest concern for the Cannons going into the season was just like the depth at short stick D midi and the fact that you guys got Ben Ramsey is just like incredible value, obviously, and what a game for him in Charlotte. I'm officially calling him Bagpipe Ben for the rest of the season too. Just fits, obviously, if you know, you know. I do think we're gonna see relatively the same guys out there for the Water Dogs. Continuity, I think, is gonna be so huge early go for this team that like offensively, I know you still have Mikey Bame. I like his game a lot. I just don't know how often he's going to be able to crack the lineup on offense. Mikey Lampert's on this team. As Bill Tierney said, he's got too many Mikeys on the roster, which is hilarious to me. But I think offensively, like it'll be Kieran, Michael Sowers, Jake Taylor. Midfield, I think is going to be very similar. Zach Currier, Jack Hanna, Connor Kelly, McConvey, Schlosser. D middies are going to be the same. I think defenses and LSM are going to be the only like potential switch ups, especially if Ryland is back this week, which I would love to see him. For a 2 game weekend as a guy who plays in the NLL and battles and grinds through a long season like that. He's sustainable for those back to back type games. Not that Jimmy Freehill played poorly. I thought Jimmy down the stretch was fantastic for the Water Dogs against the Whip Snakes.
I
But I
mean, we
think
might
that's
see.
really the
Yeah,
one spot is like, is it going to be Jimmy Freehill at LSM or is it going to be Ryland? Um, and then obviously Staff, and then who plays in goal for
yeah,
the Water Dogs?
that's
That was
crazy that is still a question for. It's like a week to week question. Where you feel like
and Tierney told us on media day like he said it's almost unfair that we have two starting caliber goalies on the team. And he said, like, one week it could be Matt DeLuca's week, one week it could be Dylan Ward's week. He also talked about how great of a teacher Dylan Ward is and how great of a coach Dylan Ward is. So I'm intrigued, like, if one guy gets to start against the Cannons and then the next one gets to start on Saturday Night Lacrosse against the Outlaws and how they kind of divvy it up. But at the end of the day, like both of those guys are wildly talented. Matt DeLuca had a phenomenal game, especially in that second half against the Whip Snakes. And I think DeLuca is like one of, if not the best, air quotes here, backup goalie in the PLL. Like that dude, if there's an expansion roster, like that dude's a starter,
Yeah,
hands down.
easily.
Um, but like both of those guys, wildly talented. And I think in a 2 game weekend for the Water Dogs, it's a good problem to have two starting caliber goalies where like, hey, if one guy gets to start, we can feel comfortable playing the other guy in the next game and still be as good, on that back end in front of the behind this defense with whoever we put in goal, which is
Yeah.
is awesome for them. And I think those are the only two questions: is like who gets the nod at goalie for whichever games, and then the LSM spot next to Ben Ware because I think Ben Ware played his way into the lineup the way that he played last weekend.
I wonder if it's we saw New York do this week one as well, where like one guy gets one game and the other gets the other, both in the goalie and in the short stick team mid position.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if like either Jimmy or Rylan are on the protected roster, and
Yeah.
then like you said, like one gets flipped in against Denver, which would be very fitting if like Rylan plays game one and then they flip the Denver kid in to play against the Denver Outlaws in Jimmy Freehill. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if we see either Jimmy, Rylan, or Jack DiBenedetto on the protected roster, and then one of the attackmen, whether it's Mikey Lampert, Mikey Bame, or even midfield wise, like Connor Smile is on this team too, wearing a hilarious number for a midfielder. My boy is out here like early 2000s NFL wide receivers wearing number 81 in the midfield.
Wait, you said his name is pronounced Smile?
I think that's how it is. I could be wrong.
Um,
I
I
haven't been I haven't been corrected when I've said it, so
yeah, I'm so curious because I thought it was I'd heard maybe in the draft or someone it pronounced Camille because for listeners who didn't know, it's spelled Cmiel. So
right.
I'm sure he had to correct every teacher on the first day of school from
Actually, I might be able to tell you right now because PLL has done something for media stuff that I have been clamoring for from every sports league to do. We're getting game notes this year, and we're getting player pronunciations for
amazing.
every player on the rosters. So let me see if.
I remember I think Jack Edwards for the Blue.
So he's not on here because he's not on the game day roster.
All right, well, let's hope he cracks the lineup this week and we can finally put that mystery to rest.
But we'll find out. I will make that one of my missions this weekend is to
All
find
right.
out how it's pronounced.
Um, cool. I think I mean we've covered the game pretty thoroughly at this point. I have one final question for you is on the second day of that back to back, no team has won that game so far this year. Do the Denver Outlaws scare you at all?
The the concept of the Denver Outlaws is fascinating. Um, as my good friend Brandon Hooten, part of OTB, has said, you know, just because you won the Tuaraton doesn't mean that translates to wins in the PLL. I think their offense is wildly talented. Obviously, you guys know I'm a huge Brennan O'Neill guy. That's my boy right there. I love watching him play. I think Jared Bernhardt will get his legs under him eventually. Like we saw the athleticism there, but like the stick skills still need a little dusting off there for sure. Logan looks good, coming back from injury, which is a great thing for him. And I still think it's a bit of a wait and see with Pat Cav. It's an interesting situation for him where he's learning a new team, a new offense again this year. Um, the Outlaws are so interesting. Like they on paper they should be game wreckers. They should be able to pump you with goals. They should be able to like dominate you. But the thing that doesn't scare me about the Outlaws so far, and this is for any team playing them, is 2/3 of their defense looks very old. and that's because they are in
Mhm.
athlete years very old. And I don't know how long of a leash Tim Soudan is going to give Owen McElroy because he has not looked good
No,
to
I
start
really
the
hope,
year.
like, yeah, I hope he's watching the game through the iPad this weekend. Um,
Like it's strange because he looked
Get
very
Matt
solid
Owen.
last year. What was that?
I was about to get hyped and say that they should put Matt Note in, but
oh,
then I remembered that Logan McNaney's the backup now and that
Yeah.
Matt Note's in California.
yep,
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
unfortunate.
I am going to be intrigued if it's McNaney this week for the Outlaws and they shake some things up. But that's the thing, like to win in the PLL, you have to have like an elite back end. You have to have at minimum very good goaltending, and then you have to have a core on defense. We've seen it year in and year out from the teams that have competed in the championship games every single year. If you don't have that, you're not going to be very successful. And right now, the only component of that the Denver Outlaws have is JT Giles Harris.
yeah,
Outside of JT, and obviously they have very good LSMs, but from just like a close defense perspective, they have 1/3 of a defense compared to damn near everyone else in the league. And that should be concerning if you're an Outlaws fan. Is Mike Manley looks old, Jesse Bernhardt looks old, don't really have a definitive answer at goalie, and you have to play against Michael Sowers, Kira McCardle, Jake Taylor, and the rest of this Water Dogs electric offense. That that's scary if I'm an Outlaws fan. Like
yeah.
you
I
have
mean,
the offense to compete with the Water Dogs offense, but defense wise, I don't know if you can hold up.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, you talk about the speed of the some players on Philly. Like one of the two of Bernhardt or Manley is going to have to guard Taylor or Sowers unless
Mm-hmm.
they swap Jake Vicino or someone down to cover him, and that sounds like one of those players is going to be getting a lot of open shots. Uh,
Yeah, to put
because
it lightly.
yeah, I can't see. I can. No offense to either of those guys, I can't see either of them sticking with Jake Taylor off ball or Michael Sowers on ball. So I forget what I officially picked in the PL app, but I think I'm gonna, if I haven't picked Philly to go 1-1, because obviously, we'll get to official predictions here in a minute, but obviously Boston's gonna win the first game of the weekend, and then I think Philly will redeem themselves the next day. Um, so I guess Jack or Kyle, unless either of you have any more closing thoughts, we'll plug some stuff and then we'll wrap it up here.
I do have one more question for you guys. Who do the Cannons decide to like throw a short stick on this weekend?
Whew.
Who
Um,
who gets the short stick draw on the Water Dogs offense?
is it crazy to think it might be Zach Courier?
That would
Because
be kind of crazy.
But I mean, it's crazy whoever it is, right? Because Hannah feels
Right.
like he's the biggest like dodging, like get to his, get down the alley, get to his place. Or feel like, especially if you got someone like Owen Grant, who's a big guy who can knock him off
Mhm.
that line. And Ethan Rawl to, getting his hands, disrupt the shot or pass.
Plus,
Um,
Owen Grant has when they played in the NLL, obviously Jack plays
oh,
in Vegas and Owen Grant
true.
plays Vancouver. So like that could be something that plays into the matchup there where it's like, let's put physical big body on physical big body.
Yeah. And Owen's like, oh, my stick's 2.5 feet longer now. Yeah, thank you for the ball, please.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a crazy thing that I feel like the NLL guys, like they're used to getting covered with short sticks, so we can throw a short stick on them, even though that's really not how you should be thinking about it. Um, yeah, I would say Hannah when he's out there, not Schlosser. Um, I like McConvey is he's more of like an off-ball cutter type of person, so you can have him with a short stick as long as the guy can match feet. Um,
Which is also crazy because like I feel like people don't realize how big of a body Thomas McConvey is. Like he's 6'4".
yeah, every time I look at his stat sheet, I'm like I am shocked. I always think he's like, yeah, not that tall, but he most certainly is. So, um, and Goody's a big guy as well, so maybe that's the
Mm-hmm.
matchup that they'll stick with. Um, yeah, I guess my answer will be Jack Hanna. And for the Cannons offense, you think it's going to be
Who gets the
Campbell getting the pole
start?
still?
Um, Probably. And I think they may, like, depending on like the attack line, whether it's Coulter or will determine a lot of that, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think you have to. I think you have just from a pure like skill perspective, you have to put a pull on Matt Campbell because he's just so lethal. He can rip twos like when he's on. Like he's a game wrecking type of player. Um, and I think like depending on which of Donville, Mick Kelly, Vardaro are active, one of those guys catches a short stick, which
Yeah.
I don't think is like disrespectful to either of those guys. Um, but like it also would not shock me if it's like if Donville's in, he gets Eli Gobrecht
Hmm.
because again of the NLL matchup there, like Eli uses a short stick in the NLL, so like it's a matchup he's comfortable with. Um, and then I mean, on top of that, like Matt Witcher's 6'3" and like big body, like you can use his physical presence to kind of neutralize some things that however you want to, see him fit. But yeah, I think you have to pull Matt Campbell just because of his what's in his bag skill set wise.
Yeah, I agree. Even if I mean, unless he demonstrates that he's like not, he's not that same threat that he was. I think I've seen him pass up a few looks from two and from deep that I felt like he should have or would have taken. Um,
Mm.
so I mean, hopefully that was just I don't know, an off night or whatever for him, and he's back in full form tonight or not tonight, Friday. Um, all right, I guess with that, let's get our predictions in for the game, and then we'll plug our watch party, your live event, and we'll get out of here. So I'll start us off. I'm saying Cannons win, obviously. Um, 15-13. I think it's going to be a decently scoring game. And I'll also say if Mcasey's in, he gets his first goal of the year or of his career, and at least two 2-point goals by the Cannons.
I mean that was a problem for the Water Dogs last year for sure, and Whip Snakes were able to score three. Um, in that first half against DeLuca.
One of them by
I won't.
accident.
Yeah, for sure. One of them, I was just like, what are we talking about? That's a 2-pointer. Um, I do think 2-pointers are going to be an X factor in this game for
Yeah.
sure. I think depending on who's able to find their shot, whether it's anybody from the Cannons who has that green light outside of a couple guys, as Brian Holman has pointed out, um, or if it's Connor Kelly, Mikey Schlosser, Jack Hanna has the range to rip from two.
Yep.
Um, 2-pointers I think are going to be massive in this one. I mean, I would love to see Ben Weyer kind of show off a little bit of the range too if
Oh
he's
yeah.
got it in his bag. Um, I don't like giving actual scores because I feel like it just like jinxes. I do think it's going to be close. I think this is at the end of the season when it's all said and done, like however it shakes out, the number one and number two seed in the East, just based off of what we've seen so far. And like I said, I think the 2-pointers will be an X factor. I think the Dogs find a way to win late because of a 2-pointer, whether it's Connor Kelly or somebody like that, or if Connor just decides to hit another sick question mark like he did late in the game against Maryland. Um, I also think the the real determining factor is going to be wing play off the
Mm.
face-off. Because like we said earlier, the face-off guys in this game, they're good. They're not elite. Like they're going to do a lot of good for you, but it's going to come down to your guys on the wings for both teams to go and get that ball and then utilize the 32-second shot clock, which we've seen both of these teams do relatively well. I was very impressed with what the Water Dogs did in one game in the 32 so far. It may not have been a goal every single time, but like it looked a lot more efficient than it did last year. And the Cannons have the ability to, score in a short shot clock whenever they want. So I do think the biggest determining factor in this game as it progresses is seeing how the wings off the face off get possession, see ball, get ball, shoot ball,
Hmm.
and do everything, off the face off. I think is going to be really what it boils down to who wins this game.
Yeah, can't argue with any of that except for the result at the end. Obviously, Boston's going to win. Um, yeah. All right, Jack, close us out here. What's your any super specific predictions or just
Yeah,
general?
I got yeah, so 2-0 this year, Cannons and me, all my predictions, obviously.
No big deal. No big deal.
And not at all. And I don't remember what my score predictions were the last 2 weeks, but I think I had the Atlas game being rather high scoring. And then last week, I felt like it was going to be lower scoring than it was against the Atlas. So I'm at least in the right ballpark. And given that we've kind of seen the two different offenses, like I talked about, I feel like this one's going to be somewhere in the middle of those two. So I'm just going to go 13-11 Cannons.
Yeah, that's a good medium.
I think 14 is the magic number. If a
Hmm.
team gets to 14, they're good. It's like lock it in. That's a dub. I think
Mm.
that's like even if it goes lower, I won't be
Yeah.
shocked. But I think if one of the teams gets to 14, that's like the sweet spot. I think for both of these teams this year is like if we can get to 14, we're feeling good about the way the offense is playing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I forget who. I think it was the Redwoods talked about that was their magic number.
Mm-hmm.
And for the KS it's 10, one because they know their offense is bad, and two because they have Blaze Reardon. Um, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I guess both of these teams, their first game of the year was 16-12, so maybe we should have predicted that and just swapped who we said was going to hit 16.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't be mad with another 16 goal performance. All right, I guess so. We'll just we'll mention this again in the outro, but we'll be watching the game at West End Johnnie's 6 o'clock on Friday. And Kyle, for anyone interested in the OTV live show this weekend, where can they find you?
Yeah, go hang out with the boys, go to the watch party, support these guys. They do a fantastic job just curating a fan base and just a all around good culture for the Boston Cannons. So go support them, go to the watch party. But if you're gonna be in Philly, Villanova, V's up, baby. Um, OTB Live Saturday will be in the Premier Zone in between game 1 and 2 when the Premier Zone opens back up. We'll be doing a live show. We're trying to make that like an institution of Philly weekend as OTB Live happens every year. In Philly, it's right in my backyard. I'm a Philly sports fan, diehard through and through, and to be able to do a live show like at a professional sports leagues like weekend in Philly is still like one of the craziest things that we've been able to do. So we're running it back again this year. Myself, DJ, we have an intern this year, intern Jacob, who diehard Phillies fan, somehow a Boston Celtics fan, but also the weirdest part, somehow a Dallas Cowboys fan. We're trying to fix the Cowboys
Oh, that poor
perspective on
guy.
everything.
That's
It's the
that's
weirdest
whack.
triad of sports fandom ever. But he's gonna be there. CFO Margie, my amazing mother, is gonna be on the ones and twos, threes and fours, running the cameras. We're gonna have a great time. We have another photographer on site for us on Friday, which is gonna be awesome. And if you're gonna be at Villanova, especially on Saturday, come to the Premier Zone when it opens back up in between games 1 and 2. We'll be doing a live recording of OTB and a little teaser here. When's this episode come out?
Tomorrow morning, so Thursday morning.
Okay, so it'll be well, I'll give the Boston Battery a little exclusive here because we'll announce it tomorrow. I'm taping with him right after this. Josh Barkelsell coming on the pod this week from the
Oh, hell
Redwoods.
yeah. What
So
I mean, I definitely the best story in the PLL since Ethan Rawl, and depending on how many more goals he scores this year, could eclipse that. That's a
yeah,
great get for you guys.
awesome dude. Very excited. It's been a minute since we've had a player guest. I was going back through last time outside of Wings Media Day when we were at Media Day was when Matt DeLuca came on the pod, and then just saying Matt DeLuca went out and played well in his very next game, which was week 2 in Charlotte. So very very much looking forward to chopping it up with Josh. His story, like you said, is phenomenal. It's gonna be a good time. I'm looking forward to that. So that'll be on this week's episode. Plus, we'll have OTB live on location as well. So double dose of outside the box this week for the people, which is
Awesome.
always exciting.
Please, when you talk to Josh, please ask him what convenience store chain he was in when he got the call that he was going to training camp.
Ooh, that's a good question by you. I will put that on the cheat sheet.
All right. Thank you very much. Cool. Kyle, always great talking to you. Wish we were down there in person in Philly, but I know we'll have a good time cheering it on with
Hey, who knows? Semifinals, we might have the same matchup. So
that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, we'll absolutely have you on again the next time Boston and Philly meet in the regular season and maybe if there's a third time in the playoffs. Yeah, enjoy your wonderful conversation with Josh and we will talk to you soon.
absolutely. Thanks for having me, boys. Anytime.
All right.
Thanks again for Kyle for coming on here. Is he rivaling Brian now in the most guests? We've had him on
Ooh.
numerous times,
I think this is
but
three, and Brian we've had on at least four.
is it four?
Yeah.
Okay, so second most frequent guest. It's really a bummer that he's a Philly sports fan because he is a truly good dude. And then, I guess the Philly comes out first, especially look at his background. So it's more of a oof. And then, oh, wait, this guy's actually a pretty good dude. But then kind of bucks the trend, I guess, of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But
Probably never thrown a battery at anyone.
exactly. Just throwing out hype for the battery.
Oh, dude, that is chef's kiss. That is an amazing, amazing play on words there. Yeah, and someone who's just super knowledgeable of the game, like he covers it like much more thoroughly than we do in the sense of like, he watches every game, he talks about every game on their podcast every week. Um, and has just a ton of access to a bunch of players and coaches and stuff as well. Not that we don't. Again, our most frequent guest is the Cannons head coach, but yeah, he's got some great connections to the league, and so stoked to hear him talk to Josh Bockersell. I'm going to be really excited to listen to that when it comes out, probably Friday. Um, because yeah, he is the best story in the league so far this year, I think,
Mhm.
along with basically the rest of that California offense. Um, yeah, all right. I feel like that's just about all we got to say. We had quite a lengthy conversation there about the upcoming game. I still feel good about the Cannons' chances to win. Um, but you never know. And that's why they got to play the games. So we hope to see you out there, West End Johnnie's Friday at 6 o'clock. The game's on ESPN Plus. If you can't make it, if you don't live in the area, whatever. But we will be there rooting on our boys, hoping they can get to 3-0, keep that spot atop the standings. So I guess until Friday when we see you in person, or until Monday when our recap podcast comes out, go Cannons.
Go Cannons.
Boom.
Boom.